Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 94, with a few media dramas this week and a whole host of questions from one of our listeners. There's loads to be chatting about. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hey guys, welcome back again. The plan was to be a slightly shorter episode this week, as there's been a few quite key things to discuss, but a relatively limited selection. However, we have had a brilliant email through from one of our listeners posing a number of questions, so we're going to start off by having a look at what he has to say and seeing what we can do to answer some of those questions. But of course, before we do anything, I'm joined by Dan. Hi, mate.
Hello, mate. I thought you were going to forget to introduce me.
Could never do that.
You'd never do that, would you? No. How you doing? Are you ready? We've got a big week ahead, guys. We've got our best mate's getting married at the weekend, so we've got a big week of getting pissed, I guess.
Yeah, well, that would be the usual course of action for a wedding, I think. And who are we to change things up? Who are we to
agreed?
Ignore what is expected of us. But before that happens, we've got this to deal with. So, I'm going to start by reading this email out. It's from Joe Reed, he's been in touch before, and he may well be the guy that posed the Cipriani Farrell Ford question to us. Do you remember we couldn't remember who it was? So I think maybe this email is also just to let us know. It was me, guys. Anyway, he says, another great episode. This is in response to our last one. Another great episode. I'd say your tactics are working quite well, to be honest. Almost dreading the wait for the next one. I presume by that he means, he
playing hard to get.
Yeah, exactly. Our playing hard to get thing is working. He says, there's a BT Sport clip on YouTube of Alex Good, and the pronunciation of his name comes up at the start. It's good, not good, like Andy Good.
This guy, I can already tell this guy is smart because that's backing what I said.
He agrees with you.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Joe has discovered the correct pronunciation for us, for those of us that didn't trust Dan. And sadly, he was right. He then goes on to say, if you had to choose between Dan Robson and Ben Spencer to start a match in the 9 shirt, who would you choose and why? Premiership form, experience in Test rugby, not that either has much, etc.
So are we going to deal with them question by question?
I think so, because there's not really a flow, so it might be easier just to take them one at a time and kind of respond as we're going through. So, I mean, for me, that one is, even though we've only seen Ben Spencer in an England shirt, it's Dan Robson.
Yeah, same for me. I think he's got, I think he's a bit more dangerous, attacking-wise, he's a bit more dangerous. And also, because for me, I've got Sips at 10, obviously him and Dan Robson played together.
Yeah, and I think as well, Ben Spencer, not that he played badly by any stretch, but, down in South Africa, first kind of proper outing in an England shirt, nothing spectacular, and Dan Robson's still an unknown. So it's, if you're going to play one of the two of them, you want someone who's going to have an impact on the game, and we've seen what Ben Spencer can do, and it wasn't spectacular. That sounds like that sounds really bad, but that's my opinion. Whereas I still think that Dan Robson would have been a better choice back then. So until I see otherwise, it's Dan Robson for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think we were corrected at one point about Ben Spencer. I think we were like, this guy doesn't even play for Saracens. And some guy emailed us in saying, actually, he was one of the top point scorer or something.
Yeah, so on paper, great player. But, just not having the impact for England on that tour. Like a lot of players, he's certainly not the only one. I'm not kind of trying to single him out, but it's often the way, isn't it? We didn't see Dan Robson in an England shirt, despite knowing that he's a great player. Therefore, you just assume he's kind of, you assume he's going to be great until he proves you otherwise. And I hope he doesn't prove us otherwise, and I hope he does get an opportunity and turns out that he is great. So we'll see what happens there. But with Danny Kerr not included at the moment and not really knowing where Eddie's head is at with regards to that, it will probably turn to one of these two to be the replacement. I just hope that Dan Robson gets his shot.
Yeah, me too. I think Danny Kerr's going to come back in, but
I hope so.
Yeah, I think the England Rugby Pod take is we'd like to see Dan Robson.
Correct. Right, next question. He says, I think I posed this question on Twitter. I don't really remember. It was a while ago, I reckon. He remembers. He knows. In regards to Sips versus Ford, what's your opinion on the 10-12 combination of Cipriani Farrell versus Ford Farrell? And specifically, is there any weight in the suggestion that Ford Farrell is a closer partnership? And is that necessarily always a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, we have briefly covered this. We won't go into too much depth. So, actually, what I'll say, yes, I do think there's weight, because Ford Farrell definitely is a closer partnership, be it personally, sort of knowing each other, playing together. But I still go Cipriani and Farrell for reasons I've said before. Just I'm looking at Cipriani and Ford as two individual players. I think Cipriani's at the moment a slightly better player overall, like all-round game. I'm backing Cipriani slightly more than I'm backing Ford, and I think Owen Farrell and Ford and Cipriani are all good enough players to make the partnership work together. The part of that question I really like is it necessarily a good thing playing together? That's actually a really good point, because, and I have no examples to back this up, so my point's less good, but it is a good point, because can it become too insular? If you've got two people who play together, know each other so well, there's still another 13 people on the pitch.
I think. Hang on, before you go on though, let's bear in mind, all this chat about Ford Farrell and their close partnership. That close partnership exists at international level only, and in the past. They don't play for the same club. They're not playing together week in, week out. Do you know what I mean? So I know that they did all their schoolboy stuff together, but that's a long time ago. That's not really, that doesn't really have any bearing on what they're doing today. They, in my opinion, they only play together well, not in my opinion, it's a fact. They only play together for England, and so they've got experience of playing together. But I don't see it as a partnership that is that much stronger than any other partnership out there. I think a lot of weight's been put on something that doesn't have any bearing anymore.
I slightly disagree with that, because I think if you sort of, mate, as we know, when you grow up like with mates and you've just got that understanding of each other, they played sort of under 20s together. I think there definitely is something there. I agree with what you say,
but that's like you. Yeah, that's like you and me. Might have played for years together, and therefore playing at uni, we might have had a better understanding of how each other works.
We absolutely bossed it. So,
and for them, coming out of schoolboy and playing through the various levels and presumably the same clubs and stuff, coming up the ranks, of course they had that understanding together. But the game is so different at the top level to what it is back then. Even the jump from if you're playing first team at university and then the jump to playing first team for your local club, to playing professional at the very top, it's so different. The amount of training these guys are doing, and it's a professional job, it's full time. I just think that anything that they will have had in their teens, 90% of it will have been drilled out of them.
I do think that's a fair point. I don't think that. There.
Yeah, well, okay. We're going to have to agree to disagree on this one, because whilst this is not me suggesting that they don't work together. I think they do, but I think what they do together and why it works is because they train together for England and have done for a number of years now.
What you're basically saying is they hate each other, but
Well, no, but I genuinely believe that Cipriani coming in doesn't disrupt anything. That there is no kind of these two know each other. There's a telepathic communication thing going on where they just understand each other in a way that no one else can. I don't believe that's true. I don't believe they play enough together for that to be the case.
Fair enough.
But we shall see. We're fairly confident that Eddie has a bit of a thing for George Ford and wants an excuse to keep him on board. But also Eddie wants to win. So Cipriani hasn't had a lot of opportunity. Obviously, we're going to come into it later on. Recent events, we don't know what impact they might have.
He's a naughty boy.
Yeah, but that door is definitely still wide open. So we shall see. Anyway, let's move on, because we said we weren't going to spend much time on that one. Right, so this is in reference, if you recall, Dan, to you single-handedly discovering the cure, if you like, to the RFU's financial difficulties in changing the colour of the text on their website. He says, loving the text colour suggestions. Not sure that's all the problems will be solved by changing colour. He says, unless we change the England kit to completely black. Ooh. Then he goes on to say he's kidding. Good. I have complete faith that England can win the World Cup and beat the All Blacks on the way. That's what we like to hear. No question there, just unless you want to respond.
Well, the fact that he has said that changing it to black won't solve all the RFU's problems shows that he's probably done a day's work in his life and he understands business well better than I do. So, touche.
It's very true, very true. Okay, he says, if Dan and Eddie, and I presume he means you, ever meet up on the weekend when they're keeping busy, in inverted commas, can he please ask Eddie what's going on? I'm not sure I know specifically what he means, just generally what's going on.
I remember this was in reference to some weekend activities that I may have suggested that I get up to, and the answer is yes, I absolutely will. Next time I see Eddie in our group, in our youth club group, we will not youth club. That's weird. In our sort of self-help group, then I will definitely ask what's going on, and I will 100% feedback.
Brilliant. Well, I still have no idea what you're talking about, but it sounds awesome. Okay, more seriously, he says. We're turning serious now. On the subject of the captaincy, I'm glad Hartley's back, but I still believe that if Farrell could get more time to work on it, time that we admittedly don't have right now, he could be a great captain. Do you ever see that happening, or are you firmly set on Hartley and then Launchbury, with Farrell, as you've said, having too much to do already?
That's a good question.
Probably a better one for you, because I've been quite vocal about my thoughts on this already, but you've been a bit more open to different options. What do you think?
So I'm open to different options. So I think Farrell could be a brilliant captain. I am in your camp at the moment, though, Ackers. I just think right now Farrell's got a lot to do. And I think when if the team becomes more settled and there's more of a leadership group that becomes apparent, because at the moment I don't know that there's an apparent leadership group within that team.
No.
Because, be it senior players being injured or new people coming in taking senior players' positions, I just don't think it's the right time for Farrell. But I think at some point Farrell could be a great England captain.
Yeah, don't get me wrong.
But not now.
In my opinion, Farrell is a leader, and I'm not suggesting that he shouldn't be seen that way. I just don't think he should be kind of the leader. You look back to when he first went on tour with the Lions. As a relative unknown by current standards, he was immediately recognised as a leader then and respected as a leader then, despite being the kid in the corner. Just because people saw the passion that he has for the game and his understanding of it. And that's great. And I think England need that from him. But I think his issue, or not his issue, but the problem England have with having him as the captain is all of the additional sort of decision-making that has to go on outside of just the game, the kind of the playing of the game in the moment, knowing when to, I don't know, maybe I'm not making a lot of sense, but I feel like
I get what you're saying.
I feel like it's better to say, do you know what, you do things a certain way and you do them very well. You just do them. We'll let someone else worry about all the other stuff.
The only, just to counter that, I actually agree with you, but just to play devil's advocate, the only thing I'd say is where a Dylan Hartley is capable of this, whoever is captain has to be a strong captain, like Dylan Hartley is, because otherwise there is a problem. There is an issue that they could get overshadowed by Farrell because Farrell is such a leader.
Yeah, and I think as well as the kicker, I don't think that the kicker should be the captain. It's slightly random, but I just think that particularly in big games, vital decisions need to be made. As the kicker, you want the captain to tell you, go for it. You want to be able to say to the captain, that's in my range, now you decide. I feel like Farrell in South Africa made a number of decisions that we all went, what are you doing? Why aren't you kicking for the posts? And I genuinely believe that part of the reason he didn't kick for the posts was because he didn't want to take responsibility for, and this isn't a negative towards him, I think he was doing this for the team, but he didn't want to say, it's all right guys, I've got this, and then miss, and then be kind of solely responsible in his head for letting the side down. Whereas I think if Dylan Hartley had been there to say, Owen, I want you to kick it, he'd have stepped up and slotted 3 points. So it's that extra thing to consider for him is, do I take this kick or do I decide that the team's going to attack from the corner? I just think life's better for him when someone else is saying to him, Owen, is that in your range? Yes, it is. Take it. Or,
Yeah,
Owen, I don't want you to go for it. We're attacking, hit it in the corner. And he just says, yes, boss, and gets on and does it.
yeah. So I mean, I agree with that to an extent. I don't think he was worried necessarily about I'll let people down. I think he's got
Maybe not
enough confidence,
consciously.
but I think he might have been worried about, am I sort of undermining people?
That's kind of what I mean.
Yeah.
It's almost like, if I take this kick, do the guys behind me, are they raring to kind of go and put one over for a try? And am I taking that away from 14 other guys and putting it all on my shoulders? And I don't want to be seen to be the guy that's trying to do it all himself. And, just if all these things are psychologically in the back of your mind, it might lead to a decision that perhaps isn't the right one.
So I do agree with that. And I agree there's something to be said about having someone else saying, Owen, get us 3 points now.
Yeah, and he's also one of our only other leaders. So I would rather have him out there as one of the team leaders.
I think that's a really good point.
And have the captain, rather than taking kind of the one guy that we've got and giving him all the responsibility. Because there will be people that will step up to the captaincy. Like you say, Launchbury, you may not necessarily see him as a leader, but I think he's the sort of person where if you gave him the armband, he would step up. I think there are other guys like him who would do the same, under those circumstances. So it doesn't matter, because for me, Hartley's the guy to do it. I think that's been shown. We'll see what happens in the autumn, but that's what I suspect we'll see anyway. So, I think in answer to that question, yes, Farrell could do it, but we both believe that he's stronger for England as a leader, not captain.
Holy shit, these are good questions, aren't they?
They're not bad. Fine. So the last one, he says, if you had to choose two wingers to start a test match against the All Blacks, and he said before the Premiership even kicks off, but that would have been before we got around to the recording. So now, like tomorrow.
The Premiership hasn't started yet. Starts this weekend, I believe.
Correct. We can do it exactly as he read it. Forget what I said, people. If you had to choose two wingers to start a test match against the All Blacks before the Premiership even kicks off, who would you choose?
I'm going May Ashton.
Yep. I mean, that's the team that we picked, both of us. Well, no, we didn't actually. I didn't, did I? What did I have? I can't remember who you went.
I think you might have gone Daly.
I think I did go Daly. I think I did go Daly, but then who did I have at fullback? Probably Watson or Noel, and neither one's available. So, or Good.
I think we'll take away the availability side. I had Good at fullback.
It's good, mate. It's not good. It's good.
Oh fuck me! Yeah, well played. Well done, you.
Thanks. Availability probably needs to be taken out of the equation, because that's one of the other things we're going to talk about, where Chris Ashton is concerned. So if we were playing tomorrow, that would be a problem. But
if everyone was available right now and saying availability, everyone's available, but they have had the injury, so we're basing it upon who's played in the tours and things. I personally would go May Ashton as my starting wingers.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right shout. I think you can't look past what Ashton did in France last year. May is without question the form English winger at the moment. He was probably one of the few guys that went out to South Africa and really dominated his position. I think I would agree with you. But it is an interesting one because, like you say, if we're saying that everyone's fit and available, you've got Noel, you've got Daly, you've got Watson, you've got Mike Brown, depending on what route you want to go down. Not that I would go down that route particularly. And then there's also a whole load of others, so there's a lot of wingers kind of on the fringes.
Yeah.
And even the ones that you think would be kind of set, there's going to be some disappointment in the autumn and going forward.
We've got some awesome wings. Even if you look at, and I know these people aren't really, you look at like Dennis Solomona, even Rocker Daguni is playing well. Christian Wade, you look at Nathan Earl, Cocknessy. Jesus Christ, we've got a lot of wingers.
Yeah, so there's a lot of guys that you could choose from, but maybe it's a bit boring. Maybe he was hoping that we were going to pick some that haven't really had a shot, but no, I think experience and form, you're looking at May for sure, and like I said,
I think Johnny May's a definite.
I can't really look past what Ashton did last year. Yeah, and he's got it. He has experience playing for England. It's not like he's a complete newbie. It's just another comeback kid, isn't he? So I think that's the right call. So that would be our choices. Joe finishes up just by saying thanks and keep up the enthusiasm and banter. No, Joe, thank you for your questions.
That was good.
Keep them coming. And guys, hopefully this is a good example to all of you. Send us in your questions and we will debate them till the cows come home.
Where have they gone?
I don't know, mate. I don't know. But yeah, so that was obviously great to get from Joe. We really appreciate that. And yeah, as I say, keep those sorts of things coming and we will continue to discuss. So what else? Just finally then, before we move on to our two big stories for the week or the last few weeks, one more review. This is from BD Barry. 5 stars, love the pod. He says, so where do I begin? Start off with that fella that keeps on giving the bad reviews. Great. Who doesn't love a bit of banter? Second of all, you two are great lads. You both say you don't know much about rugby, and it's true. You don't, but you're here to give out knowledge. Well, how are we giving out knowledge and inform others, and how are we informing others? Anyway, which you both do great. Honestly, every Thursday while I'm fitting kitchens, I listen to the England Rugby pod, and it brightens my day. Got my Welsh girlfriend to start listening as well. What a bonus! Keep it coming, lads. Hope to hear my review.
Sorry, finish reading.
Hope to hear my review on the next episode. There you go. Much love, BD Barry.
BD Barry, firstly, that's awesome. Thanks very much for the review. He got his Welsh girlfriend to start listening. BD Barry, I need tips from you about
having a girlfriend,
about being a boy. About sort of not pissing off women, mate. That's awesome work.
That is awesome.
God,
work.
This guy's my hero. But mate, thanks a lot for the review. Really enjoy that. I think it's a fairly fair review as well.
Yeah, I think probably. I'm bitter that he's called us on our knowledge. I want someone to write a review and just lie and just say you guys literally know more about rugby than anyone I've ever listened to before.
You make Bod look like an amateur.
Exactly. Maybe the next time we'll say that.
Hey, we never pretend anything on, but I think we know enough to have a sensible conversation.
Well, a few people listen to us now, and they come back for more. So we obviously know enough to entertain, and we know we entertain ourselves with our chat and our knowledge. So that's the most important thing. But yeah, Barry, cheers for the review, cheers for the 5 stars, and guys, keep them coming as well. That'd be awesome. Right, on to the 2 big topics for the day. I'm sure most of you already are aware of this. If you're not, you've clearly not been following the news. Let's start with Danny.
Let's start with B6.
So on tour in Jersey with Gloucester, and he gets himself arrested for fighting. But it was worse than that, wasn't it? There was a whole string of kind of charges initially brought against him.
So this is the press story,
right?
So the press story is he was in the club, he was there, and he went to go outside and take his drink with him, and the bouncer said, "You can't take your drink with you," and he was being a bit leery, and they got a bit feisty, and they ended up, basically they ended up. I don't think a full-on fight, but I think they ended up having a bit of a sort of confrontation that sort of went outside. He ended up getting arrested for a lot of different charges, including, a phrase of larceny, because in theory he's stealing a drink from the property, which ultimately they got dropped. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them got dropped, and then it was like sort of abuse to a police officer and things. And he did apparently say, "Loosen these cuffs, these wrists are gold." Now, that's firstly incredibly douchey thing to say, but this part of me likes it. And mate, that's exactly the sort of thing you would say, because your wrists are gold for very different reasons. But that's the sort of thing you would probably be saying. But
I don't get it, but okay. If anyone laughed at that, perhaps you can write in and tell me what Dan's talking about. I have a theory about this, right? And I say theory. This you might as well take this as fact. It'll never get reported, but I think this is what happened.
I actually know the full truth, sorry, but you tell yours first.
Okay, so they're in Jersey. It's a small island. Okay, it's pretty close down there. They're all pretty close. Sippers has gone in. He's having a drink. He goes to walk outside, and they say, "You can't take your drink." And he says, "Oh, sorry, sir. Where would you like me to leave it?" And then the guy said, "Are you giving me lip?" And he was like, No. I'd like to know where to put my drink." And he said, "That's enough. I've had enough of you, sunshine. You're out." Grabs him and starts manhandling him. Now he's going, "Hang on a second. Look, I am quite a big guy. I don't really appreciate being pushed around. And I think he just took the guy's hand and just kind of moved it away from him. But as soon as he touched the bouncer just fell on the floor and was like, you've just attacked me. And then Jimbo, the local Bobby, who's friends with them all, he was walking around the corner at the time because he knew what was about to happen because it was all pre-planned. He came around the corner.
By the way, it was a woman police officer, so it's Jimbo.
She's called Jimbo. And she came over and grabbed him. And actually, what she did is that she tried it on with him, and he was like, "I've got a girlfriend."
Oh my God!
And so she didn't like the rejection, and therefore arrested him. And then they accused him of stealing because as he was being pulled out of the club, he hadn't had a chance to put his drink down yet, so it got pulled past the doorway with him.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Do you want to know the actual true story to this?
I mean, we can listen to your make-believe version if you like.
Well, okay, what happened is there was a Ford family get-together, and George Ford was there, and the bouncer is actually George Ford's cousin.
Right.
And George Ford said, do you know what? I'm a little bit worried at the moment. I'm worried I'm going to lose my 10 shirt to Danny Cipriani. And the bouncer said, look, G-Dog, that's what he called him. He called George G-Dog, and his brother Joey calls him J-Cat. Right. He's like, G-Dog, don't worry, Gloucester are coming on tour to Jersey. What I will do is I'll make sure I'm working the door when Danny Cipriani's out, and then I'll get him in trouble.
Right.
So
clearly that one's made up.
I don't really know what we're doing this week, mate.
I don't.
I think we're both overexcited.
Yeah, we are overexcited. We've got a big wedding coming up. But more importantly, it is true that he was arrested. It is true that a whole load of ridiculous charges were thrown at him. It is true that most of those were dropped. But he did get a fine, I guess, for some sort of overall afraid being basically a bit of a drunk knob.
Yeah.
And the problem is that as a professional rugby player on tour with Gloucester, he's in trouble with Gloucester. As someone part of the England setup, he has a responsibility to act in a certain way, and so the RFU have now got involved. And so that's really what we want to discuss, isn't it? Because he's been fined by the law. They've dealt with him the way that they see fit. And so what I think we want to discuss is it reasonable the way that he's been that he's being treated by the club, by club and country? Should they be involved at all? Is their involvement the right amount? All that sort of stuff.
So here's my thing. Firstly, the thing that got me, because I remember you called me. I think it was last week after we recorded the pod. You called me and said, "Mate, have you seen this had happened?" And you told me about it. And we were like, if he's been remanded in custody and things, we actually thought it was probably going to be more serious.
Yeah. As
it turns out, it wasn't that serious a thing. So should the club get involved? Gloucester, 100% they should get involved. He was on Gloucester time. He was away with Gloucester. They should get involved. I think Gloucester have dealt with this brilliantly. They have fined him. They said, look, you represent the club. You were there. You were being a bit of a knob. You represent. They've also fined him a couple of grand, and it's been dealt with. I think Gloucester did a really good job of dealing with it, actually, and saying, he misbehaved. Let's not blow it out of proportion, but he did misbehave. We've fined him. He's been punished. Done. So I think Gloucester did a really good job. Where I think it's got a bit silly is the RFU. So should they be involved? Yeah, he is part of the England squad, and they have to look at the wider game. They said, allegedly, they said to Gloucester, we won't do anything till you've dealt with your disciplinary thing. But then they found him, well, I can't remember exactly what, not bringing the game into disrepute, but
no, that's exactly, what did they say?
Right.
I've got it here. Let me just, it was described as Cipriani charged with improper conduct by the RFU.
Improper conduct. So I think that's fair enough. I think, firstly, they should have waited till the Gloucester thing had been dealt with, which it has been. It does seem, why they have to get involved with this, I don't know, but they would with any other player. It's not as if it's just for Danny Cipriani. But so why they need to get involved, because it wasn't on England time or anything, I don't really understand.
Well, this is the bit that I find quite irritating is, these guys represent their countries, but they're doing their jobs. If the same thing happened when you were on a stag do and you worked for one of the banks, for example, you don't come back, having been fined by the law, and provided that obviously it doesn't affect your ability to do your job, they don't then fine you or
but don't
punish you.
forget, he was there on a Gloucester on a work, so I think it'd be different if you were
so
away on a work.
I'm okay with Gloucester saying, look, actually,
Yeah.
that was on our time, and that's therefore you're there as a direct representative of us, and it's all happened at the time. I just think it's a bit cheap for the RFU to then come bowling in and say we're also going to do it, because it's like what? So he's been fined by the law. And then Gloucester have said, well, the law hasn't done enough, so we're going to fine him too. And the RFU is saying that the law in Gloucester, they're not doing enough, we're going to fine him too. Like, where does it stop?
Yeah,
World Rugby are going to get involved. It's we've got a World Cup coming up. We're going to fine you too.
Yeah, and now the World Rugby Board going to get the International Rugby Union. So that's where I agree. So I think Gloucester positioned it perfectly. I think Gloucester hit exactly the right note, saying, no, look, that was bad behaviour. But it was a misdemeanor, and let's face it, it was a misdemeanor. It was not that big a deal compared to how
you don't drop all charges if something serious was going on.
I think he had one small charge, and he got the fine, and then fined by Gloucester. I think that's fair enough. Dealt with. I think the RFU should have done. My personal feeling is they should have released a statement saying we don't condone this sort of behaviour, but the law have dealt with it, the club have dealt with it. And as far as we're concerned, the matter's closed.
Yeah, 100%.
Why they're now involved, I don't understand.
You need to be writing that shit down, and you should be doing it in the right colour font.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually,
no one knows what you're saying because you're writing the wrong colour, dickheads.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I would be very interested to know if the exact same incident occurred in exactly the same way, whatever it was, whether it was the George Ford thing or being come on to by a policewoman, whatever. If the same incident happened and it was someone random, would any of this have come about? Not the finding, obviously, that was because it's him and who he works for, basically. But would someone else have been arrested for the same thing?
So I would argue. Well, that's the thing. It's hard to know exactly what happened.
I'm going to go out there and say I have no idea what happened, and I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I would argue it's escalated a lot more because of who he is.
Yeah, 100%.
But equally, Danny Cipriani's been about the blog a bit.
That's it. He's got a little bit of a reputation. From when he was younger, and someone's gone, oh, I've got an opportunity here to make a bit of a name for myself. I'm going to arrest Danny Cipriani. You don't start throwing around, larceny charges because they walked out of the front door of the pub holding their drink. I mean, that's absurd. And I know it was dropped.
The police going, yeah, but to start with, that's in theory what went wrong. So they were saying that's on the table. When on the cold light of day, when people have looked at it, they've said that's overkill. We can drop them. So I don't necessarily think but I think the police dealt with it fairly well as well. Actually, I think the police and the courts dealt with it well.
Now you need to get the splinters out of your arse.
You need to get what?
The splinters.
Yes. Yeah. And why is a bouncer letting number 10 fight him? That's a bit embarrassing. But it's I think overall, and just for him saying Lucian McCulley's wrists are golden, he probably did deserve a fine. I'm a big Danny Cipriani fan as a player. As a person,
I'm the opposite. I think that's awesome.
Do you?
Yeah, loosen the cuffs, mate. These wrists are golden. Brilliant.
If he was saying it jokingly, I think it's brilliant. If he was like, I'm a legend.
Mean, he was obviously pissed.
It's a bit
would it have been serious? I can't imagine it being serious.
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
I can't imagine that being serious. I'm sure that was a joke. Anyway, we'll never know, I guess. But hopefully it won't impact anything else. I really hope that Eddie Jones doesn't. Because the trouble is, under Stuart Lancaster, he'd have been dropped.
I think under Stuart Lancaster, there would have been more issue. I don't think Eddie will put much weight on it.
I don't either. I think Eddie Jones knows that, but unless Eddie's been looking for an excuse. A lot of chat before, after
G-Dog back in.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of chat from us and from in other forms of media as well after the South Africa tour and after Cipriani had his shot, of people saying Eddie Jones doesn't want to play Cipriani, he wants to play George Ford, but he's going to be tough to ignore that performance, and so he's got the excuse he wants if he does. I mean, I think it'll be very telling if he doesn't select Cipriani in the autumn. it'll be very telling. I just hope that it doesn't come to that. But I suppose the kind of the thing that we've failed to mention is Danny Cipriani. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
come on. Like,
you've got to know better. Yeah, you've got to be smart.
Like you say, you've been around the block. You know how things work. You just come back. Okay, so someone said something to you that you didn't like. Like, get over it. Like, you're a big boy.
Yeah, if you're in a club bouncer, don't take your drink outside. You know, people are looking for a reason to give you a bit of a hard time, Danny.
If you can't control yourself in those situations, then stop drinking.
Yeah, don't put yourself. And don't get me wrong, it is unfair. He shouldn't be he shouldn't be wound up because of who he is. But that's the reality.
But it is what it is. Yeah,
because
exactly.
because he's a world class sportsman. People are naturally going to try and alpha him because it makes them feel better about themselves. But that's just them being pathetic. So, but then Danny, he should know better. He should just be like, oh, come on, get it. Or, yeah, whatever, cool, fine. Because he's got nothing to prove in that. So it was a bit stupid of him, but he's come out, he said the right things. He said he's mortified. Like, fair enough. I hope this is the end of it now. It should be.
I hope so. He wasn't the only person to get himself into a bit of trouble last weekend.
No.
I've not seen the incident. I don't know if you have. Do you want
the Aston one?
Yeah.
I haven't seen. I just heard that there were punches thrown.
Well, why don't you tell everyone about what happened here?
Awesome, cool. Yeah, because I'm super. So from what I understand, it was a Sale pre-season friendly. There were a few punches thrown during the match, and he might get a 3-week ban for throwing punches. So my initial thoughts are, yeah, fine, 3-week ban. That doesn't really change anything. He might miss a few games start the season. The thing that worries me is Ashton has missed out on chances to play for England previously for bans, I think eye gouging or whatever, which did seem a bit harsh at the time, and it's unlucky timing. I really hope something stupid doesn't mean he misses out on another chance, because I think he's got a lot to offer. This time, I don't think that will mean that at all, and it shouldn't. But
are they both being cited? Because it was
I think both.
Rory Cockott.
I'm not sure who the other player was actually.
Rory Cockott of Castres.
Of Castres.
Yeah, Rory.
Or Castres.
Rory Cock.
They're new to Cock. Yeah,
you should be able to remember that one.
Oh yeah, very good, very good. It's of Castres.
Yeah.
So they've thrown a few punches. Things have got a bit heated. It sounds a bit handbags, to be honest. I hope.
I don't think Eddie Jones will do anything. We know he quite likes that.
It's the only thing that worries me about it, and I don't think this is going to get escalated. The only thing that worries me is if you do that in an England shirt in a World Cup final and you get sent off.
Yes,
you're starting to. So, and he's got a bit of previous with that sort of thing. So, although you don't want him to lose that sort of edge a bit, I mean, Chris Ashton is, by all accounts, a pretty hard, tough guy. Like, I don't want him to lose that, but equally, you don't want the team to suffer from a sort of, sort of petulant outburst. I don't think this is much of a story. I think this will be dealt with, and I hope both him and the Cipriani scenario, I hope Eddie does just sort of blow them away. Yeah, they've been dealt with.
Well, let's hope this is just evidence that there really isn't a lot going on right now as we await the start of the Premiership season, and that once things kick off, and we start seeing a bit of proper rugby, all of this sort of stuff gets brushed under the carpet and we can move forward. Because it's two guys that we were quite excited about involving in our New England setup that are involved here. So a little less of this, please.
Yes, come on, chaps. It's just not rugger.
It's just not rugger, is it?
Right. So, quick question before we go with the new season imminent. Is it? I'm pretty sure it is this weekend.
Let's hope so. You've committed already.
Yeah.
If it isn't, we'll just have to put this episode out later.
I've lost track of weeks. Okay, one player who is going to be the find of the season from an England perspective?
Well, I don't think we're going to find anybody new.
Okay, who's going to maybe come and boss a position and really make it their own? Because, like we said before, we don't think there are many positions that are fine. So I'm talking from an England international perspective.
I don't think anyone's going to. I mean, I think Ashton's probably the one that's kind of new, if you like, and Cipriani, in fact, are the two kind of that are coming in and putting pressure on previously fairly cemented positions. But I think the person I think is going to kind of have the biggest impact, really kind of put their stamp on their position. I'm going to say Courtney Laws.
Oh, that's an interesting shout. Yeah, because those positions have been the second row sort of up and down, and with your
there's a few options in there. It's not, but it's by no means guaranteed.
Yeah, so I was probably going along so I actually think Danny Cipriani might be one of them. The other one is Tom Curry, who I think will make that 7 shirt his own.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think who was I thinking the other day. So I actually think that we might see somebody who I think is going to come back into the England setup, which could make things interesting, is Kyle Eastman.
You think?
Yeah, he's at Leicester now. I really rate that guy. I just think that he potentially, I'm not saying he's going to boss it and be a guaranteed starter for England, but I think he's going to get back into the England squad, and I think he's going to start giving us some real options, which is quite a weird thing to say.
Have you just moved to a different room?
Sorry, I just put down to the toilet to get some tissue. My bad.
Echoes. No, and no one needed to know where. A yes would have been fine for everyone.
Apologies.
They've all just heard you go to the toilet. Nice.
I didn't go to the toilet, don't worry. I think Kyle Eastman. I think he's going to get
interesting. Back. I don't, and the reason I don't is because I forgot one man, Manu Tuilagi.
Oh, nice.
He. This is the season where his injury issues are behind him. This is the season where he goes all year, no injuries, bosses it for England, bosses it for club, and bosses it for the World Cup next year.
Jesus Christ, I hope you're right. That would be amazing.
That would be amazing. That's what I think. I think this is it. I mean, we say it every time he gets injured. If he comes back, and then people say, well, this is it now. His career's over. But he comes back for a few minutes. This time, I feel like it's the one. I'm willing it to be the one. So yeah, they're my two.
Okay.
Manu and Courtney.
I'm going to go Kyle Eastman as the sort of guy who gets back involved in the thing, and then I'm going to go Danny Cipriani.
And what about James Haskell?
So I think Haskell will be in and around the England squad for a lot, because I just think the guy's got such a good, positive fighting attitude that I just think. I think
what's going to be interesting.
But playing wise, and I hate to say this because I'm a huge fan of the guy, I think his best days might be behind him.
Well, in theory, they should be, but we know what kind of a workhorse he is on and off the field.
Yeah.
He was at Wasps for a long, pretty much his entire career. He's now at a new club, fresh start. Admittedly, age is not his friend, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I imagine he's eyeing next year as his retirement year post World Cup. So it'll be interesting to see if he can pull anything out of the bag for these last 18 months or so. So I think
it certainly won't be through lack of
effort. One to watch.
Yeah, and I hope so. I love Haskell
because I think he will do whatever he's told to do, and I think Eddie will recognise that, and so Eddie Jones will be telling him, you need to do this, and you need to do that, and you need to be more powerful, or you need to be slimmer, or whatever it is, and he'll go away and he'll do it. You know, he's
So
gonna.
I don't think the guy's physique needs critiquing.
Maybe he's too big though. Maybe Eddie's like, look, you're actually a little bit too big. I need you to just dumb it down a bit, speed up. Who knows?
Could be.
Who knows? But my point is, I think he'll do whatever's asked of him, and you know, if you do that, then you give yourself every opportunity. So I think if we're talking ones to watch, I think let's just keep an eye, see what happens there.
I'm not anti that. So
let's not mark his card just yet.
On that unique bombshell where we've named 15 potential players to make their mark this season, let's wrap it up. I think, and
indeed, guys,
look forward to the start of the season.
Yeah, exactly. Big weekend for all concerned. We'll obviously be back. Well, probably next week. We will try and get back into the habit of bringing you an episode every week now. But thanks for listening. Thanks for those that get in touch and tell us what you think, and thanks to those that get in touch and pose questions to us. They're really helpful. Apart from anything else, they help us decide how to approach the episode. So yeah, more of those. Best thing to do is just email us, englandrugbypod@gmail.com. And for those reviews, get over to iTunes. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. It's @EnglandRugbyPod. There is a website. I'm not going to tell you because I don't think anyone ever visits. But yeah, we really appreciate you listening. Please keep spreading the word, keep listening, and join us again next week.
Thanks very much, guys.